Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Samantha, and she is in the UK.
Hello.
Hi. Would you like to tell us about your experience?
Yep, definitely.
Okay.
It was in 2020. I have a generalized anxiety disorder, and during the pandemic, it got considerably worse. So 2020 was quite a struggle for me. This took place in August of that year. I also had a family member diagnosed as terminally ill. So yeah, it was very hard. And one summer's evening, I was sat with my husband in the living room. It was just a normal evening, and I had a severe panic attack. I don't always have panic attacks, but when I do, they can be quite horrible. But this was different. This was like a real panic attack. I kind of tensed up and I was hyperventilating, and I don't know if you've ever had a panic attack. They're awful. I don't wish it on anybody. Very scary, because you genuinely believe like you're going to die. Do you know, it's that feeling in your body, like your heart starts to pound really quick. I mean, during one of them, my heart got up to 180. So it can be bad. And I think this is what started my OBE like rolling. I believe it was this and my sheer panic and my sheer fear that kind of popped me out. And all of a sudden, it felt like the sides of me were rushing down, like I was going up. Yeah, and I could see in front of me this void, this black void, but I could also see my living room at the same time. I don't know how, but I could. And as I was looking at this void, I could see orange balls. They look like little suns. And sorry, I'm a bit nervous.
You're okay.
Yeah, I could.
You're doing good.
I could see. Good. Yeah, I could see orange balls, and they looked like little suns, and they were amber, and they were glowing really bright. And they kind of went like amber ball, and then there was a silver string attached to the next amber ball, and so on and so on. And then I could see this like grid of these amber balls and strings went off into the distance. I couldn't see that they went on indefinitely, but I knew, like instinctively, I knew they were endless. They went on forever. And at this point, I wasn't even noticing my panic attack. It had near enough gone. I was just in this place, like looking like, wow, what is this place? And my husband, who had come and sat next to me because of the panic attack, like he holds my hand and usually he'll bring me down from it. He knows how to. I was telling him what I could see. I could see all this. And on the left of me, when I looked, I could see a hologram of a very old memory with my biological father when I was very young. I'm not sure why. I mean, we haven't been in a lot of contact, but that's the memory I saw. It was just him jogging and me following on a bike. And as I looked to the right, in this black void, there was a crack in the black void. And as I looked up, like towards the ceiling, in this crack, I could see these red oval discs whizzing past at like a huge speed in like what looked like a clear river. And as I was sitting there, I started getting like knowing stuff, like stuff I'd never even thought about. I started laughing and I started going, like I'd worked something out, like I'd been overthinking something so much, but it was so obvious, which now I think is that we are not our bodies. We are not our bodies. We are not our brain. We are consciousness. We are spirit, or however anybody wants to say. So it was like I'd worked this out all of a sudden, and I wasn't like this body, and I wasn't all of this. And I started, like, my husband was sat next to me, and I started going, none of this matters, to all our belongings. I was like, no, none of this matters, doesn't matter one little bit. And I felt in this place like there was no opposites. There was no need for opposites. Everything was perfect. Everything was exactly the way it should be. And sorry, I've got some notes. Yeah, I think that's it. And sorry, I'm sure there's something else.
So you were just able to just tell him what you're seeing. That's amazing. Like as you're
Yeah, I
seeing it.
was. I could see this place and I could see the living room, which was just extraordinary. I don't know how I could. Oh, that was it. I remembered. I looked, and this always gives me goosebumps. I went, I know this place. Looking around, this is where I was before I was born. Come out of nowhere. I mean, as I grow, like when I grew up, I was always more on the Christian side, and then maybe I kind of left that as I got older. So I'd never really thought about where I was before I was born, or, you know, I was petrified of death, so I never thought about what was going to happen to me when I die, because I was absolutely petrified of it. But yeah, that came out of my mouth. I said, I know this place. This is where I was before I was born. And it felt so peaceful there, and it was so clear. This is, I have trouble explaining this bit because we don't have the words.
Right.
But when we look here, it's not as clear a picture as it is there. There, the colours were so solid. Like, if you're in a dark room, you know, you can see little fuzzy bits. Like your eyes go fuzzy when you're looking through the dark. Here, there was none of that. The colours were so vivid, and it was so real, more real than this could ever be. I started panicking again because I thought I was going to forget this place. And I said to my husband, I went into a mass panic going, I'm going to forget this place. And all of a sudden I thought, hang on a minute, I don't want to leave. And the minute I thought, I don't want to leave, that was it. Pop. I was straight back into my body. I mean, I didn't know why at the time, why I started panicking, like, why was I so scared I was going to forget this place? But it's not until afterwards, when I started doing research, I learned about Maya and the veil. So I think it kind of, that was what I was scared of. Like, I was scared like the veil was going to come over me again and I was going to forget this place, and I really didn't want to. But yeah, I found it amusing the minute, like, I was like, no, I don't want to go, I want to stay here, it feels so nice. It really felt like home. But yeah, the minute I said that, I was like, pop.
What did your husband do?
My husband was brilliant, luckily. When the experience had finished, I was just kind of sat there like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And then I turned to him and said, I think I'm going to have to go to the hospital, get an MRI and get some tests done. That was something happened in my brain, which I thought was my brain. And he was like, no, I don't think it is. He actually said, I think it's an out of body experience. And he'd actually had some experience like when he was younger with it.
Really?
Luckily, or I would have been straight up the hospital, like, oh my gosh, something's wrong. But no, he managed to calm me down. But after that experience, I could not stop thinking about it. And I kept thinking, like, if it was an out of body experience, why could I see my memory here in a hologram? And what was that in the break, in the void, like whizzing past? And it took me about 3 days to work it out. I think it was the inside of me. Now, I don't know whether I had an outer body experience and was shown the inside of me, or whether I somehow managed to turn inwards instead of outwards. I don't know. But I think it was a case of showing me the inside. And when I Googled the red oval discs, it's exactly the same as a bloodstream, magnified.
Oh.
So I think what I was looking at was a bloodstream, because it was just like a bloodstream, red oval discs in clear liquid going, yeah.
Like throughout space.
Yeah, it was, yeah, there was the black void, like everything was black, and then these lights, but it was just a tiny crack in the black, and that's where I could see these red oval discs like whizzing past, like real quick speed. But yeah, when I Googled it, it's exactly the same as a bloodstream. And then I had the memory on the left side of me, which again makes me think I was shown inside of me somehow.
Do you feel like that taught you something, like seeing that of you and your dad?
Yeah, I do. I've been making a lot more effort to get to know my dad and come to terms with some things and that. I think the whole showing me inside of me had like a big like effect on me, because I had a lot of self-hatred, like growing up, like huge amount. And I think I was being shown, like, how can you hate yourself so much when you've got something so perfect? And this place was perfect, it was bliss inside of you. And it was a big lesson. And even, I mean, we're talking nearly 2 years ago now. Yeah, even though all that time's passed, I'm still working to come to terms with stuff and not to talk myself down. I think a lot of us do that sometimes, don't we? Like when we make a mistake, it's like, oh, you're such an idiot. Or, you know, you're having a bad day, you walk past a mirror and you're like, oh my gosh, I look a mess. Do you know what I mean? It's that
Yeah.
sort of horrible,
Yeah.
like, self-talk. And I'm trying to stop that and still trying to see that I'm worth it, if that makes sense.
Has this
Yeah.
experience taken away your fear of death?
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome.
I'm still fearful that I'm going to let the divine down, or source, or God, whatever anybody calls God. I still worry about that, but the actual dying and being dead, no. Not if it feels like that. There's no way. It was lovely.
I had an
Yeah.
out-of-body experience before, but I was just suddenly in the night sky looking down at Earth. And, you know, I was 16. I was by myself. Well, I was not by myself, but, you know, I couldn't understand. The person that was in the other person's room didn't know that I left, you know, but so it was, I was about to be raped, and I just left, and I was out in the night sky looking down at Earth, and I was so safe there. And so I kind of think of, you know, what you're saying is just a safe place.
Yeah.
And then during my 5-year-old drowning, it was out of body experience. And I had a memory open up. I was looking at a fishbowl, and, it just taught me something that, oh, I guess I'm dead now, because this fishbowl memory, it helped connect that. And so I kind of get that. And then I had a experience one time, or suddenly it was 1986. Suddenly I'm back in 1966, and I'm a little kid in my nightgown knocking on the bathroom door, and my dad slams his newspaper shut real fast and loud, and I jump, and I knew consciously, you're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be, with your husband and kids, where I just was. How do I get back there? And I was so scared I wouldn't get back. And I ran out the
Yeah.
door. I had enough, like, you're like two places at once, but I was more there than here. It wasn't a good experience because I didn't understand. It was just pop. I was there, and I ran out the back door just trying to escape what's in my head. And someone was knocking at our back door, and he said, what's wrong? What's wrong? And he went to my husband, something's wrong with her. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. Like it never happened before. Like it was a common thing. And I was so shook up afterwards.
Yeah.
It shakes up your sense of reality. How can you just be, I was in this bliss state, looking at my husband, 3 little boys laying on the floor asleep. And all of a sudden I was in 1966, knocking on the door, and all of a sudden scared. My dad's mad at me because I knocked on the door. He's in the bathroom. And so I couldn't wrap my head around it. And I had to keep asking myself questions, why? And then I finally, I wanted to remember the rest. Like, my dad had sexually abused my sister and some other children. Was I sexually abused and I don't remember it? And I talked to we were doing therapeutic foster care. So I talked to a psychiatrist and about it. I said, I think I want to be like hypnotized. I want to know why to scare me, why I went back in time. He says, you probably don't want to remember. That was just it. So I worked on it myself, and I finally realized the rest of it was when my dad slammed that newspaper shut. He come to the bathroom door, and he was mad that I interrupted him. Everybody else was in bed asleep. He said, so now you go in there and you sit down, like on the toilet. He says, you don't get up, because I had to pee. And because I was knocking on the door saying, I got to pee, and that made him mad because he had to get up. And so he says, you sit down. He says, you sit there and you don't get up till morning. You're not going to tell your mom either. So that's what I did. I sat there all night. So that was, but why it happened then, and why, but I had an NDE right before that. So I don't know if something about slipping out of my body was, like my soul was like free, felt free to do that now. And some strange things started happening after my NDE besides that. And then my 5-year-old NDE drowning, there was some strange things that happened right after that. So, I don't have answers, but I can understand what you're saying, and just my own take. And, not me, it's just my own take is I'm wondering, kind of like with right before the rape, I was just praying to God, I wish I would be on this earth because I was so scared. And you were going through a lot of turmoil, and then having a terminally ill family member. And then you have these anxiety attacks anyway. And it just seemed like your soul just like, get out of here. I'm out. I'm done. I go. And you were out. And it was just like give you a reprieve, like this little break. Like I got from the rape. I got a break. Like I had no knowledge of what was going on. I knew my body's done there being raped because he was just approaching me and let me know that's what was going to happen. And I was praying I wouldn't even on this world. And then I was gone. And I was literally like you're literally not in your body, but it's so cool that you was able to talk and tell your husband what you're saying. That's really, really cool. Because I got to a point when I'm out in the night sky looking down at earth, and I was so safe there. And it's like at the beach when you feel that warm breeze in your hair. And I was just basking in it. And then I got thinking, wow, this is cool. And all. Then I got thinking, wait a minute, I'm only 16. I don't want to be up here forever. I have a life to live. And I think I need to go back no matter what going back meant.
Yeah.
And then I was back. And so like you, it's like, I think you kind of got to a point where you kind of like, was you like a little scared, like, or may had it. No, you wanted to stay, didn't you? You wanted to stay.
At the end. Yeah. And that's when I was like pop straight back into my body. But I think you're absolutely right. It's that break. It genuinely felt like that. And afterwards it changed my life completely. And I've been trying to strive to be like better in everything I do. And yeah, but no, I agree, it's that break. It was that break. Maybe everything was starting to get on top of me and getting too much, and then that panic attack was just like the last straw, and I was just yeah.
I've watched movies in the last few years, and I think back to where I was about to be raped and left. And when I got back, the rape was over. I had no memory of it and nothing. And I'm like, I'm so thankful, because I would have probably committed suicide if I had a memory of that. But that would have been too much. But I've watched movies since then, the last few years, true stories of women, girls been kidnapped, and say one's in a box or one's in a basement, there's a confined space, or they're like chained under somebody's bed, these kind of horrible things they can't get out of, these horrible situations that they're in and they want out of so bad, like you and I were in, and they left their bodies, and they had knowings like, don't make him mad because he's done this to girls before, and they would have never known that. It's like, I call it the land of knowing. You're in this space, and you're like in where we go when we die, even though we haven't died. It's like we've had a spiritual death.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's amazing. But yeah, when I was there, it was just a knowing. Like, all this information started coming to me. I didn't hear anything, I didn't hear any voices, but it was like, yeah, like that just download is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Because
we often get those in our NDEs. We're like, oh, okay, and nobody told us anything. It's just like all of a sudden, like, oh, okay, I get it, I understand.
Yeah, that's it. From nowhere, out of nowhere, all this information.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. And when now, since I've come back, I've noticed as well, I'm getting starting to see things and know the future. Just little things. Well, there are some big things, but they're not for me to tell, but just seeing situations somebody's going to be in, and stuff like that. I mean, even little things like, I guess there was going to be an extra chicken nugget in the packet or something, something simple like that. Like, it will say there's 8, and I was like, no, there's not, there's 9 in there. And there was. But yeah, I've started to get those recently, and I started seeing a lot of orbs of light and shadows and stuff.
I think once we've been on the other side, whether it's near death or spiritual death, that's my word for it, I don't know what it'd really be, but is we've been on the other side, in that, I say, land of knowing. And when we come back, it's like you can't unknow it. It's like it's still with you. You can't. It's like you picked up another sense, and it's now with you and a part of you. And it's up to us, it seems like, to learn how to listen to it and understand it, like you're doing. Like, you're hearing it, you're paying attention to it, and recognizing it.
It seems it's not all the time, but it will pop in my head. It will like come up from somewhere else, and I'll know the information, which has been quite scary, to be honest, like knowing illnesses somebody's going to have and stuff like that.
Have you wrote any of this down to help you process it and remember that this was said, or see what happened?
No, I haven't tried that. I should try that.
You might put down like the day's date, and this come to me, and then just see if it comes to pass, and just kind of test it. I never did that, but I could look back, I think, why didn't I do that?
Yeah, I should start doing that. But
and I've had after my second NDE, when I was 25, I started being led. Just all of a sudden, these knowings came, and I started saving lives just based only on this knowing. Like, I had to pull a car over and go in this house and save a kid from choking. Another one, I had to go down this field, and there was a little kid drowning in a ditch. Another time, went up the road. I just had this knowing, and it was perfectly quiet. There's nothing around. I looked over, and a car had hit a tree, and there's four men that had been in it. Two was ejected out the back, and two was trapped in front. Just these things just kept happening. And I didn't understand, because there was no word back that I knew of near-death experience and after effects and all those things. But it might help you to start reading up on near-death experience and after effects, because yours is, even though it wasn't a physical death, it's still the same. Once you've been there, you had some kind of, like say, maybe spiritual death, and it's still, you were on the other side, and you're gonna have all those after effects, just as if you had a physical near-death experience. Is my feeling on it. I don't have any, books to tell you. This is just my experience and what language I've come to use to explain it. And
Yeah.
because I don't know, because I haven't. No, I did. What I was going to say is I haven't seen like anything to like read up on it. But first time I told my NDE at a group, there was a nurse in the audience, and she spoke up, and she said, she's the one that told me. She said, do you know this happens in abuse a lot with children? As a nurse, she sees it frequently. When a child is being abused, all of a sudden they leave their body, and they explain to the doctors, nurses, psychiatrists, whoever afterwards, okay, because I used to be a child abuse investigator, and I didn't hear this. But with her being a nurse, she said, so say someone come, they abused me, and this happened, and then I left my body, and this and this and this happened, and they just go on as if it's just as normal as anything, where you or I are like, I know this sounds crazy, I know this is weird, but the kids don't seem to judge it like that. It's just a matter of fact. And then and when I, at 16, that next day, I got away from that guy, and they took me to the hospital, and I wouldn't go in, but they was asking me questions in the police car. And then took me to children's services, and they was asking me questions there. And I couldn't tell them I left my body. I couldn't tell anybody that. I told them everything else, but I left that out. So if they would have pressured me for questions about the actual rape, I wouldn't have had any answers. And so, I'm thinking, as an investigator, they probably would have doubted my story, because there's a big hole in it. He come towards me, and then I like come to when it was over, and this is what he said. But that whole block there is just gone, because I was somewhere else. I can tell you where I was and what I was doing. Now I could, but for decades I couldn't I couldn't talk about the rape, and everybody assumed it was a boyfriend. Assumed I went with him willingly when he was just supposed to give me a ride to my dad's, and that was it. And I was just, somebody pointed him out today. He'll take you to your dad's. I knew he was. And then he didn't. But everybody assumed he was my boyfriend, and they assumed what happened was willing. And so I got beat up a lot for it by my family, like knocked out cold, because he was a black man. And Southeast Ohio, where I lived back in the 70s, like a woman that would have a relation with a black man, you were treated like you were garbage.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it the 90s, you say?
It was in the 70s. See, I was 16, it would have been 1977. And back then, if you had relation with a black man, you were like marked for life. You were the most disgusting piece of trash to the white people. And so they all assumed I went with him willingly, and that he was a boyfriend and those things. And so I got like knocked out cold and beat up and mistreated for a long time, even in my first marriage, because of it. So what I'm saying is I really understand a lot of levels what you're saying, how you can just be gone.
Yeah.
But I was praying away on this earth. I didn't think I would actually not be on this earth. I was just like, I can't do this. I got to get out of here. And but I'm thinking that maybe if you like read up on near-death experiences and the after effects of near-death experiences, because it seems like you're having those after effects now. And I did too after the rape, and it took me decades. I'm 61, you can see you're a young lady. And I hope that, you can benefit, from what happened to me, because, I've just come in the last couple of years to realize, whether it was a near-death experience from a drowning, whether it was the out-of-body experience from the rape, or whether it was near-death experience at 25. It didn't matter. I had after effects after
Yeah.
each of those. I had after effects from that rape and leaving my body, just the same as if it was an actual physical death, because just things were different. I started getting, like you're doing right now, you're getting these knowings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
think
I look at
as
it. I
well.
mean, I'm sorry.
Sorry. No, it's okay. You go.
I mean, you look at it how you choose, but I, look at it as God saved me by pulling me out.
Yeah.
And, like you were in such turmoil that you couldn't take that anymore. And so, when I first come back from the rape, from being out in the night sky, I thought, was that an answer to a prayer? Was that a wish come true? Do I have some kind of power that I'm able to leave when I want? I didn't understand. And another time, a week before my second NDE, my little boy was screaming, "Mom, Jeremy," which is my second one. And I knew something horrible happened. My husband took off, ran to see what was going on. I was frozen. I was like you. I was like frozen in fear. I was so frozen in fear. It's like, God, I can't do this. You can't take my baby, Jeremy. I was praying for twins. And I was like, if you have to take a baby, take twins. Just don't. I was like trying anything, don't take my baby, Jeremy. And I'm praying, and all of a sudden I'm out of my body and I'm calm. And I had a knowing. I knew exactly what happened to my Jeremy. And it's not like seeing with your physical eyes. It was seeing with spiritual eyes. I had this knowing, oh, like you had a knowing. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of melting snow and rain. It was Easter Sunday. And the creek, the property we just bought, had always been ankle deep. But this knowing let me know that because all that rain and melting snow, that it was actually, the creek was up and it was swift. And my son was trying to swim because he panicked. And if he would stop panicking, if he would just stand up, he wouldn't be drowning. And so I said I was in this knowing. And so I said, Jeremy, stand up. It's not that deep. Walk out of there. And years later, he told me, Mom, I heard you pray. And I never told that story to anybody. And the first night I told it, he came around the corner and heard me tell it to somebody. He said, Mom, I heard you pray. He says, what it was. He says, I was trying to swim. I panicked. And I heard you say, Jeremy, calm down. It's not that deep. Stand, walk out of there. So these things are real. For my son to hear me and me to get this knowing and know exactly what was going on, and he could hear me praying. I believe we were both in that land of knowing. He was drowning. So he was out of body from a physical, a near-death experience. I was out of my body like you from a spiritual death. And we like met in that place of knowing. And I just knew suddenly what was going on, even though I physically couldn't have seen him. There's no way. I mean, it was down the field. There was trees, between us and stuff. And so, I mean, this stuff isn't in your head. It's real. And what's happening to you now is just as real, because you are now able to access that knowing. And that is a gift, because you can save lives with that. Here a few years ago, I hadn't had one of them knowings in the longest time. And all of a sudden we're going down the road. I seen this road closed sign due to accident. And all of a sudden I got a knowing. I told my husband, I said, you get out and find out if we can still go down that road, because I just had his knowing what was going on. He come back and I said, you don't have to tell me. I already know it's a motorcycle accident, wasn't it? He's like, yeah, that's what the cop said. We have to go this different way home. I said, listen, I said, they think it's one guy on a motorcycle, but there was a woman on the back and she got thrown and they don't know it. And I got to go down there and find her. And he wouldn't let me go down there. He said, you're not allowed to go down there. The cop said, you can't go down there. And I called my friend that lived there. And so I didn't listen to it. I found out the next day, son called, says, I think my mom was on the motorcycle with that guy that died. He says, because I think she was with him, and they went and looked, and there she was. They found her dead. And I've kicked myself ever since then. I should have listened, and I didn't. I couldn't, maybe she'd already was dead, but I had this knowing. I knew exactly what happened, and I didn't go down there. And I'll forever beat myself up. So I'm just letting you know that if you get any knowings like that, it doesn't hurt to follow through. Like, what would have hurt if I would have I could have went a back road and went down there and ended up exactly where she was and exactly what I wanted to do. My husband kept saying, no, you can't go down there. And so just pay attention,
Definitely.
because you have a gift now.
Yeah, we recently had an experience on the road as well. We was on a dual carriageway, and we weren't going too far, but I felt something. I kept saying to my husband, slow down, something's going to happen, slow down, slow down. And a little while later we got torrential rain and wind, and the visibility was 0. It was so dangerous on this dual carriageway. But yeah, I agree. I like listen to it, and yeah.
You know, I even get things like, you know, I'll be outside working, all of a sudden I feel somebody come up upon me, but nobody's there, but I feel them just come, and they're telling me to do something. First time it was, are you praying for Pappy, which is my ex-father-in-law? I was like, no, I'm divorcing his son now. You know, and then they took off. And then I found out that later that night he had a heart attack and died. I'm like, well, should I pray for him? Because this don't come with a manual. When we get these gifts, we don't get a manual that says, okay, you're going to get this now, and this is what you need to do. And we don't get it. And then another time I was out front porch painting, and I was all hot and sweaty, and I was really trying to get the job done so I could quit at the end of the day. And all of a sudden I felt somebody come up on me, and I could tell it was a male presence. And they said that my best friend, that her dad was going to die, and I needed to call her and tell her that I'm going to take her to see her dad. And I'm like, I'm sweaty, I'm covered in paint, I just want to get this done. And I'm like, I'm stupid in my head. You're like, why? I'm thinking I'm crazy. I always thought I was crazy when I had these things, and I was, because people don't talk about it normally, you know. And that's why I have this podcast, so anybody listening can know that if you're having these, if it doesn't hurt to check it out. And my friend's dad died, and so I apologized to her, and I still do now and then. Sorry. My neighbor. And so I apologized to her, and she's, oh no, I knew he was sick, I just know he was that sick. And you know, so I'm just letting you know these things, so maybe you won't make my mistakes.
No, I think everybody's got that gut instinct as well, haven't they, that they really need to like listen to sometimes, you know, that gut instinct that makes you feel like, oh, I don't feel safe around here, or
Right.
Yeah, I think
and that's some of the things in those true story movies I was telling you about. You know, they would say, you know, don't make him mad, he's done this before. Or when you get that gut thing, like somebody's at the door, and you know, my dog's carrying on, so something is strange, something's off, and I really shouldn't go to the door. And just, yeah, like those guts. And you know, so many times we hear people say after the fact something bad happens, you know, something told me not to, whatever. And I think that something is, you know, from, I call it land of knowing, because I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah,
It's just like this wisdom is at our fingertips, and we don't access it because we don't trust it. So you have a gift now. And you've lost a lot of your fear of death.
Yeah, I have. I definitely gone. In 2020, I also qualified as a counsellor, and I think the near-death experience has gone into that as well. Whereas I think now, when people come with problems, I think the main place to start is understanding that we're not this body. You know, it seems so simple, doesn't it, that we're not this body, but there's so many people walking around identifying with their body and the pain in their body and everything that's happening into it. But we are the ones observing what's happening in our body. We're not the body.
Yeah.
So, but it's amazing how many people think they are, and are walking around thinking this body is them. But like, when you listen to near-death experiences, everybody says like they feel nothing for their body.
Right. Yeah. Now, us young mothers, when things happen, like with my NDE at 25, it's like, I can't stay here. I have kids to raise, that whole thing. And I've heard that the exception to the rule is young mothers, because for a long time I didn't know why was I thrown a fit because everybody else says I wanted to stay, and they said no, you have to go back. And I was just saying, I'm not staying here. I got kids to raise. Like, you can't make me. So, but
That's
yeah.
it. Yeah. Yeah. I think I would have been the same as well. I have young children and they need me here.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't get that far. As soon as it popped in my head that, oh, I like this feels really nice and I want to stay, it was like, and I actually felt the pop. And I actually have endometriosis, and it's a very painful chronic illness. But because I was looking at this place in so much awe and was like amazed and feeling amazing, like wonderful, I didn't notice I had no pain in this place. It's not until I felt that pop, I felt the pain come back. So in this place, there was no pain whatsoever. It was such a nice feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. Year ago, in January, I was very sick for 4 days. I'd lost like 13 pounds in 4 days. I was the most ill I've ever been. And I passed out, was sitting on the toilet. And my husband walked in just as I was passing out and going to the floor. And suddenly I was between my body and the wall, because there was probably like only a foot between my face and the wall, but I was in between that space. And I'm like, oh, I'm out of my body. First, right off the bat, I'm out of my body. But everything was black, but I knew I was out of my body. Oh, and then I could hear people talking, and it sounded like a great big, huge room full of people real close together, and all these voices, everybody happy and chattering like it was a big party, and I wanted to go. I was like, I wanted to go there so bad. What are you saying? What are you saying? I couldn't make out what they were saying. And then I could hear my husband in the distance saying, baby, baby. And I was like ignoring, because I was like, really wanted to know what this lady was saying, this one particular woman I focused on. And then a knowing came. If I focus on them and want to know what they're saying, I will go there and I'll come back. But if I focus on my husband, I'll go back and, to my body. And I thought, oh, I better focus on, like, curiosity kills the cat is what I thought. And so I started focusing on him, baby, baby. And he was shaking me as I come back. And he said, my eyes was flickering. And I kept saying, what? I said, yeah, because I want to know what that woman was saying. I couldn't make it out. It's muffled.
Yeah.
Like when you're underwater and say in your pool and people are talking and it all sounds muffled. You hear all these voices, but they're muffled. That's what it was like. It was muffled.
Oh. So you can leave your body quite regularly?
Not intentionally. It's never been intentionally, so it's not like I'm gonna leave my body now. Bye. It's not like that. It's been in, what was sickness, and 2 NDEs, and then the rape. Just poof. But that time I actually did, I wish I mean on this winning in this world, which I didn't think those things were possible. And I hadn't recalled the drowning, like right after the drowning at 5, I remembered it for a little while, but then I had forgotten completely about it until after I was 25 and had the second NDE, and it come back to me all at once one night. And then I started remembering these other things gradually over time as I relaxed and allowed myself to stop telling myself, what's this memory? That's crazy. Forget that. I'm like, no, what is that?
Yeah.
What was it?
Oh.
Because if I was going to go crazy, I would have done it before now, And so I've led a professional life. It's not like I've had episodes of delusions or, mental illness. So I started learning to trust myself. You're not crazy. This memory comes up the same way every time. So, I started writing. And so I wrote a book. I just started writing one day and I didn't stop for 3 months, and I ended up wrote a book. So I published it. But
Wow.
because I just decided to stop. Like, I was abused as a child, and I thought, I had all these abuse memories, and so I was pushing everything under the rug, they say, And I realized I was putting the spiritual under there the same. I was putting away everything nobody wanted to hear. They didn't want to hear my spiritual stories. They didn't want to hear the abuse. So I would push it all away. And I would have anxiety. And I don't know if they're like full anxiety attacks. I know I didn't have panic attacks. Because I found out the difference in that before.
Yeah.
There's a big difference. So I know I didn't have those. But
there are anxiety attacks. Yeah.
Yeah. But I would get the anxiety to where, and then I would realize anxiety was coming when something was pressing into my mind and I didn't want to face it and I'd push it away real fast. And that's when I would have the anxiety.
I think trauma in childhood and trauma, just any trauma actually, if you bury it, it's coming out one way or another. You know, it needs to be dealt with. You know, you need to go to somebody like a counselor, a therapist, and talk it over. You know, we're not meant to keep that in there. You know, it's you need to deal with it and let it go. Either forgive who's hurt you, which it sounds easier said than done, doesn't it? That's not an easy thing to do. That is so hard.
And people don't have to forgive, really. In my book, there's nobody, to me, you know, people say, oh, you got to forgive. It's like, no, I don't. How can you make somebody feel a feeling? And if somebody has never come to me and apologized, then why would I forgive them? If somebody's come to me and said, I wish I could have even got by with more, why would I forgive them? You know, and to me, I'm not God. What's my forgiveness going to do? That's between them and God. And what I've done wrong in my life is between me and God. And so me to say I forgive you doesn't even feel right to me. So,
but maybe not holding on to the hatred.
Right. And I do. I mean, I suppose I do, you know, as I got older, but you know, I think hatred is good. Honestly, I will say that because I was the type person, I never felt anger. Somebody would beat me up and I'd be like, I wonder why they did that. It's like, I don't analyze it and I go right back around them and I wouldn't feel anger ever. And then finally one day I got angry and I didn't know what to do with it because I had never felt anger. And so I didn't, what do people do with anger? I'm just now for the first of my life feeling it. And what do you do? Nobody tells you what to do with it. And so I think it's okay to say, you know, that was horrible and I have really bad feelings about it because everybody wants us to stuff it. Pretend it didn't happen, pretend you forgive them, pretend it's in the past and pretend. And then we have anxiety attacks and we have what you just said, panic attacks. People have suicide attempts. I mean, I was 16. I wasn't dealing with the rape. And one night, I was at a payphone trying to call someone and my friend was with me and she got on the phone with them and I snuck out where she didn't know. I walked away and I was standing right in the middle of the road waiting for the semi to come hit me. I was blank. I was numb. I was totally ready. And I couldn't wait. I was like, look at them headlights. Come on. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it seemed like to me, she grabbed my arm and pulled me out. And that semi was honking its horn. And I was just like, come on. I wanted those lights so bad. Just come on, you know. And she pulled me or I wouldn't be here. And I didn't even know she was walking towards me. I was just focused on them lights, like, come on, let's do this. And so, you know, we need to say how we really feel.
Definitely, yeah. And talk about our feelings. And, you know, anger can be good. Anger can be good, but not rage. Right. You know, anger and rage can destroy you from the inside.
Right. But I think if we allow it to surface and then deal with it, and then it'll be gone. But I think if we refuse to, like for decades, I didn't know what anger or rage felt like. Somebody would beat me up and I'd walk away. I mean, because when I was a kid, they'd beat me up and I would come to later. And then you get up and go to school the next day. And then it happens again. Then you get up and go to school the next day. You know, I wasn't feeling I didn't have a right to feel anything because that's how my family responded to me. They responded to me with So what? Who cares about you? You
Yeah.
know, and so that's how I treated myself. Who cares about you? So if somebody beat me up again, well, who cares about you? You just get up and go on. And that's not good.
No, so you had everything repressed, like all your emotions. You weren't allowed to express them for like a very long time, and then they all kind of,
Yeah. And then one day straw broke camel's back, and I felt so much anger and rage, and I didn't know what to do with it.
mm,
So I stuffed that too, you know. And so now that I'm older, you know, if I get angry, if I get mad, I'll say I'm angry and I'm mad, you know, and then I can be over it. But I'm not going
yeah,
around pretending I'm a person that doesn't ever get angry. I mean, I get comments in my podcast every day that would make a normal person commit suicide. You know,
really.
yeah, I delete them, but yeah, people are horrible. And if you block them from your channel, then they'll email you and tell you how horrible you are, and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah.
I think a lot of the time it's good to look, although it's hard, is to look for the good stuff. I mean, sometimes we can become, myself included, become
Yeah.
so focused on everything bad that's
You're
going
right.
on, we lose sight of the good. I mean, for example, I've seen recently is the current situation in Ukraine, which is just awful and heartbreaking. But I have just been like amazed at the amount of love like being poured out to Ukraine, and the amount of people that have helped, and the amount of people that have opened their arms. It's just been like amazing to see the whole world kind of come together and give love to Ukraine.
I don't watch it. And I've had
I
friends
watch,
criticize me for it. I'm not watching it.
I don't usually watch the news, but I have been trying to keep up to date with Ukraine stuff. But
I
it's
don't want to know.
heartbreaking, isn't it?
It is. I don't want to know, because I will take it on and it will drown me. And I feel
Yeah.
like this is just the beginning. And I'm going to have to conserve my energy for when something really goes down close to home, because that's just how I feel about it. I feel it's just the beginning. And I feel like we're all going to experience it close to home. And I'm just going to conserve my energy. That's just my take on it. I mean, usually like I'm watching everything and I'm keeping up on everything, but you know, the whole COVID stuff, it just suddenly died down, and now we have this, and I'm like, I'm not jumping on the next train
Yeah.
of fear and being upset. I'm just not. I mean, we just come out
No.
of, you know, so they said we're out of it, of all everything that's been going on, and all the sanctions and tearing, you know, our livelihood, our lives as we knew it, completely tossed everything, you know, up in the air. And then now this, I ain't going there. It's just too much.
It's,
I
I
need a break.
totally agree with you.
Yeah.
The news can be too much, and social media can be too much. It's like, yeah, I recommend it to everybody, you know, have a break from social media and make sure you're going out and walking in nature, and, you know, appreciating like those little things, you know, don't get too lost in all of that, because it is heartbreaking.
Yeah. Don't live in your phone. Don't live in your computer. Don't live in your television. I mean, yeah,
No.
know what's going on, but then go enjoy your life.
Yeah, no, I agree. Just
Because
another
like you
thing
said,
that's
it's where you put your focus.
yeah, that's it. It just reminded me of another situation. I was um on a social media, I think, and I remember being really upset, and I started to cry, like something had really upset me, you know. I remember going to lay on my bed, and I was crying, and I said, why do we come here? Why are we here? To suffer? Do we come here to suffer? You know, it just didn't make sense to me. And then all of a sudden I started saying, I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful for my home. I'm grateful for my pets and my animals. Started listing all the things I'm grateful for, and I have so much to be grateful for. And actually, I'm not suffering, you know. So just listing off the stuff to be grateful
Right.
for helped me, and I was like, fine, near enough straight away. I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. But it's so hard to see people in the media like suffering and
Yeah. Makes me
Ukraine at
think
the
of years
moment.
ago, my mom, her husband, my abusive stepfather, had died, and she was having a lot of financial problems. And she had told me she was at the verge of a nervous breakdown. And all of a sudden, she started hearing that song, "Count Your Many Blessings, Name Them One by One, Think of What God Has Done." And she says that pulled her out of it, just to start thinking of all the good things that she has in her
Yeah.
life.
Mm.
So, and that's where I'm going as soon as we're done here. Is my mom's in the hospital. She'll be 88 next month, and I don't know. This might be her deathbed.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
that's where I'm going after this.
Oh,
So I'll be there for her. You know, she's never been there for me, but I feel like just because she's been a bad mother doesn't mean I have the right to be a bad daughter.
exactly.
And I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I wasn't there to hold her hand through this.
Exactly.
So,
And that's very brave, because you could be totally different and be like, you know, you didn't do nothing for me, why should I do anything for you? But like you say, that's not a good mentality, is it?
yeah,
That will hurt you as well.
yeah. I can't do that to anybody. You know, it's
No.
about my mother. I mean, she's my mother. And so you don't get a do-over on these things, you know. You have to live with what choices you made in these moments. And I'm not going to look back and think I was hard-hearted and I wouldn't go
Mm.
be with my mother. So
No.
that's what we do. So I appreciate you coming on, and it's so nice to get to know you from so far away.
No problem. It's my pleasure. It's really nice to meet you.
You too. I wish you all the luck in the world, and
And
enjoy your gift.
thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Uh-huh.
Bye.